Well, Mikey, so this is what I'm thinking on your steering wheel. So, first off, I'm thinking about using this. Now, um, my other thought was I'd really like to use some of this darker mahogany, and it'll darken with age. It's nice and hard. It's got paint on it here, but anyway, that'll come off. But I don't know. I mean, there's only so much I can do with the steering wheel. I mean, my thought is I'm limited because if I get it too ornate and kind of a wild, crazy, unusual design, the comfort level of actually grabbing it with your hands and turning it starts to go away and it becomes an obstacle, not something you embrace. So, as we all artists are always doing, as you well know, we're trying to balance form and function. And it's really rare when you can get those two things equally in one project. And when you do, you love it. And that's why you love it probably more than other people realize, because you know the struggle. So anyway, so that's the struggle I have with the steering wheel. It's like I want to do something different, but there's only so much I can do. So only so far out of the box that I can get before it becomes an obstacle and not easy to use and user friendly to steer with. So I'm thinking, how can I make it catchy, notable, and still keep it comfortable to steer? So that's the struggle. And one of the things is I really like that mahogany, the color of it, that the darker color. But one of the ways that I can make it kind of catchy, aside from the design, is my wood choice. So I've got some maple, that's this white blonde wood. I've got some maple that has some beautiful curly grain to it. And I'm thinking that will probably show up, but I'm going to have to put a high gloss finish on it so it will show up and it will pop. And that in itself will be eye catching. So I dug this out of my wood pile. Believe it or not, I've been burning firewood through the winter, and this is part of the firewood I've been burning. However, I did kind of throw these pieces to the side because I recognize the grain as being so unusual and nice and ornate. And so I saved those. Your steering wheel just might be the thing to put them on. So let me talk to you and show you about that. So here's the maple, and here's what catches my eye, as if you hadn't already noticed. See all these waves in it right here? Wood fibers generally grow straight, like straight straws. And it just makes for a flat grain. But sometimes, and I don't know why, but the wood fibers are like curly hair, like a wavelength. And they go like this. And you can see that happening there, and you can see it happening here. So what happens is, this is when it's been busted off, and you can see the waves in it pretty easily. When I plane it down and smooth it down, it looks more like this. Now what happens is, you take those wavelengths doing like this. So you take those wavelengths, and it represents here the up and down. And when you cut them off, mill them, make them flat, you cut right through them like this. And what you get is where this line right here intersects there and there and there and there. You get that wave going through like end grain, and then it goes through the flat grain, and then it goes back in grain, and then it goes to the flat grain, and then it goes in grain, and then to the flat grain. And it does that all the way through. And what happens is you get the striping effect, because if you ever take a piece of wood and you ever finish the end grain here where the straws are coming out the end, you ever finish the end grain here, it's going to be darker than the flat grain will. But in this case, where it's got a wavelength going, you essentially have like these darker stripes, like end grain, flat grain, end grain, flat grain, end grain, and flat grain. So you get the combination of those two mixed together, and that's why you get this tiger striping look. And us as woodcraft, and here it's really well pronounced because you're actually seeing the grain bust off, and you're actually seeing the wavelength right there. So us as woodcrafters, we love this kind of stuff. then we love it. And we usually take pieces of wood like this when we find them and put them aside and save them for a special project. And this may be the project for you. So this is my, like I said, firewood, and so I've already milled this right here off, and I milled this edge off here to give me a flat square to work off of. Now I'm going to take on the saw, and I'm going to cut these off and get it cut down into manageable pieces about the size I'm going to use in the steering wheel. And these are long enough. So once I get all these pieces cut, and I may cut them out of this one as well, then I'll start to assemble them and put them together. But that is what an artist looks for. That's what I'm looking for. You have to be able to look past all this rough-ass shit right here. In fact, I find it intriguing that you can make something so refined and beautiful as this, and yet still has the chainsaw marks in the bottom where it came out of the woods, out of the forest like that. You know, that's the signs, the leftover evidence of coming out of the forest in its most roughest form at the beginning of the process. And this is at the finished process. Here's another little short lesson. So you see these burn marks here. Let me explain this. So that's a sign of a dull saw blade most of the time, like 95% of the time. That's a sign of a dull saw blade. What happens, people don't understand. I'll try to blow this up, you can see it. Those teeth right there, it's kind of hard to focus on it. But those teeth will cut a wider trench than the side of the blade. They are slightly wider than the side of this blade is. So what happens is when it gets dull, it gets hot. Okay? Like it gets hot. And then the blade, when that metal gets hot, it tries to expand and get bigger, and it can't really do it. So the way it expands, when it does, it gets wavy, and it grows like that. And when it gets wavy, then the sides kind of puff out, and then it starts to rub the sides of that, and that's what causes that. And that's when you know you got a dull saw blade. So here we are. We got our wood just halfway cut up to make the steering wheel. So let's finish cutting it down, because it should look like that when you cut it, as opposed to that. Well, I got the steering wheel done, and I think it looks really good. I'm totally happy with it. So my friend Mike, here's the story on it. He gave me a steering wheel, or threw it in my direction. He's got a shop in Memphis, Steel Rose Metal Co. And he said, hey, make me something out of wood and surprise me. So he's building a tea bucket, and he wants to put this on it. So I love that patinaed metal centerpiece. It just looks perfect. Anyway, but you can see the grain of the wood, how nice and curly it is in the finished product, as I was showing in the video of it in the raw. Really nice tiger striping there. Really nice. Yeah, that looks fantastic right there. And I will tell you, you may look at these little red dots right here and think those are simply cosmetic. Well, they do add to the cosmetic part of it. However, they are much more than that. They are actually there to help hold the hoop together. I had multiple different ways of holding it together, and that was just one of them. So those are like pieces of wood that literally go all the way through into the back side. You can see the joint right there and goes into the back side there. So got those little tabs glued on top of the joint right there to help hold it together. The pins go through it. The joint is a half lap, if you can tell right there. So that helps immensely. Then the pin comes on through the other side here. And it's like that all the way around. And in the video I was talking about end grain and how the end grain looks dark. And right there you can see that's the end grain, is that dark section right there. So that gives you an illustration of what I was talking about. See how here it on the bottom it looks like a normal color, but watch when I swing it around to the end grain. See how it goes dark? That's the end grain showing up right there. Pretty neat how that works. Anyway, that's why the tiger striping happens in it. Right there. See if I can hang this up here so it doesn't fall off. But that's why the tiger striping happens, because that's a series of end grain and flat grain. But anyway, it's made out of maple, and it came off my firewood pile, if you can believe that. I was burning this stuff. Well, I wasn't burning that. I was kind of saving that. I did burn a little bit of it, but I stopped and said, no. I need to save that for something special. Anyway. But I think it turned out really, really well. Trying to figure a design that it worked. I'm happy with it. So anyway, thanks for watching, y'all. Thanks for watching.